These wide receivers could potentially win you your fantasy league, and for that reason, for the value you're getting them at their current ADP, you need to be drafting them in all of your fantasy leagues. We're going to give you the statistics as to why you should be doing that and why we think they're going to produce at a very high level for the 2023 fantasy season. Do us a giant favor and make sure you hit like on this video, and also make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We've got content coming out all season long. We're going to try to help you win your fantasy leagues. It really helps us out when you subscribe as well. And like I said today, we've got 5 guys, and we really do think that these guys at their current price are going to be league winners. They have league winning upside. They're being faded for one reason or another. We're going to give you the statistical and historical data as to why we think that they are good values. The first guy we're going to talk about.
Yeah, this guy's actually a league loser. You know, we lied to you in the title. It's Devante Adams, and I'm just going to feed it to you straight. Devante Adams last year, he wasn't very good. He was only first in the NFL with a 32.6% target share.
Ew.
He was only a third of the passes went to him. Like, come on, it could have been half of them. He was only 8th in yards per route run and 4th in yards per team pass attempt. That's not good.
Mid. It's mid.
To be in the entire NFL, only 8th and 4th, not very good. No. He was 2nd in the NFL in deep targets with an ADOT of 11.8 was his average depth of target. Nah, not very good. So it's not like he's a top 3 weapon or anything, so he should definitely be drafted a wide receiver 9 on Underdog.
He is a top 3 weapon.
Is he really?
Oh.
So we probably should be drafting him.
Wait, so
were you being sarcastic?
Why is he being drafted so low?
Sorry, that was really funny. We're goofballs. If you subscribe.
Yeah, do it. No, but for real, like the reason we're making fun of this is because everyone's saying Devante is going to be really bad. He has Jimmy Garoppolo now.
It's a downgrade.
Derek Carr was absolutely horrible last year. So let's go through this. Like, it's not about Devante anymore. It's about Derek Carr.
Guy, I sold my soul.
Derek Carr last year, his catchable pass rate was only 75.9%. So only 75.9%, 76% of the passes that he threw were catchable. When he was under pressure, that went down to 55% of these being catchable.
Remember when
you look at, you know how I said Devante Adams was 2nd in the league in deep balls? Well, that's funny. Well, Derek Carr, his deep ball percentage was only 57. 57% of his deep passes were catchable. And under pressure, only 36% of his passes were catchable. Derek Carr was horrible. Jimmy G, however, Jimmy G was pretty good last year, and I get he was with the Niners. Jimmy G had better protection. But Jimmy G, his catchable pass rate was 8th in the league at 80.5%.
That's better than Derek Carr.
That's a lot better. He was 2nd in the league under pressure. Nice. So like Derek Carr was bad under pressure. Well, they were both under pressure. Jimmy G was 2nd in the league under pressure at 72%. He was 4th in the league in his catchable deep passes. His completion percentage under pressure was also 2nd in the league.
Something's not adding up here because why are we even fading him?
That's the point.
Well, that's a great question.
Why the question? Here's a question. After all these numbers, after seeing that Jimmy Garoppolo is clearly a better NFL quarterback and more honestly wide receiver friendly than Derek Carr was last season by a long shot. The point is, why is Devante Adams being drafted as a low-end wide receiver 1 when he is literally
top 5,
debatably the best wide receiver in the NFL, and that directly correlates to fantasy points. This guy makes a run for top 4 wide receivers every single year.
Yes. And
his down year was wide receiver 7. So what are we doing playing with wide receiver 9?
He was still first in so many statistics last year. He was still top 10, top 5 in efficiency.
Especially in these drafts where all the wide receiver value is flying off the boards early. Devante Adams, you're getting in the 2nd round.
Yeah, you can get Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Devante Adams. You can literally
please draft Devante Adams this year and just please trust us. Even if it was a QB downgrade, it wouldn't matter. We wouldn't expect him to make a significant drop, even if he had you can't really convince us that this is going to be a downgrade.
I love A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's going at wide receiver 6 right now. I'm taking Devante Adams over A.J. Brown because he doesn't have Devante Adams doesn't have a Devonta Smith.
Unless you're counting,
and it's Devante Adams,
Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Our next guy on this list is going to be Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper. This is fun. Amari Cooper's going as the wide receiver 18 off the board. I saw this on Twitter. This is a fun stat. Amari Cooper finished with the same number of top 6 finishes last year as Jamar Chase and A.J. Brown.
And they're good.
He was 6th in top 6 finishes. His wide receiver 1 rate was 8th highest of all receivers.
Wow.
Not to mention, his QB rating per target last year was 38th in the league, and he was 86th in target accuracy. Meaning there is room for improvement. And I think if you watched last year,
85 receivers in the league who had better passes thrown to them.
more accurate targets. I think you know this from watching the Browns. There was definitely room for quarterback improvement. And now somehow, because Deshaun Watson's likely, I think likely at this point, to return to his form and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, now somehow Amari Cooper's situation's worse. I mean, Amari Cooper last year, 13th in yards per team pass attempts. 13th. And he's going as the wide receiver 18. I mean, with Deshaun Watson, look, he wasn't throwing the ball. If you look at his game log, he wasn't throwing the ball a ton at the end of last year. He had around 30 attempts per game. They were running the ball. They were giving the ball to Chubb a lot. And you know, they kind of, at that point, that's kind of what they were just doing. And I think they knew that Deshaun Watson was going to return to form right away.
What did Amari finish as last year?
He was a wide receiver 1.
So why would he finish lower?
That's what doesn't make any sense to me.
Jacoby Brissett to Deshaun Watson.
He was wide
Let's do a
receiver 10
comparison
last
here.
year.
Okay, I understand that there's some people out there, especially like in the fantasy community, there are a lot of people that believe that Deshaun Watson was truly horrible last season, and he was, but that he's not going to ever be the same. There is an argument to be made that Deshaun Watson does not return to previous form 2 years ago and that he is not quite as good. That said, not quite as good is still a top half quarterback in the league, and $250 million says so.
But he's being drafted as a QB9.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We're drafting him like he's going to take a step up. So why
And
are
if
we
that's the case, then why are we treating
Why are we fading Amari Cooper?
like why are we fading him?
Let's do the cherry on top, and then we'll leave it at this. Amari Cooper last year was 3rd in unrealized air yards. He had 870 unrealized air yards last year. Next guy on this list is going to be Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman.
Inside joke, sorry.
Matt Ryan, bad.
That's all. That's pretty much all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
Because
And with Matt Ryan bad, Michael Pittman, 141 targets last season. He is a target hog. I don't care who is playing quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts for the next 5 seasons. Michael Pittman, from a target perspective, is quarterback proof. I mean, this guy is guaranteed with those targets to be a wide receiver 2 easily. And where is he going right now? Wide receiver 30. What an absolute joke. What a joke.
So the argument is, and I want to step in because I did the research on this guy too. Anthony Richardson, not a downgrade. Everybody's going to say, well, when you look at wide receiver splits with rookie quarterbacks,
I get the rushing
every year,
upside.
Anthony Richardson, not a downgrade. When you're looking at QB-proof wide receivers, there are a couple different things you're looking at. Michael Pittman was 2nd overall of all receivers last year in route wins. He had 297 route wins. He's an underrated route runner. He was 12th in juke rate. He was 20th in yards after the catch. He's a guy who can get open and create. Those aren't the type of guys that are going to fade when you get a QB change.
No,
but here's the thing. Anthony Richardson will be no worse than Matt Ryan was. If you watched, if only there were 3 guys who watched every Colts game last year that had to suffer through all that to see how bad Matt Ryan was. Oh.
And to see how good Michael Pittman was and how much he transcended that situation.
Michael Pittman was 46th in target quality last year. 46th. He had 5 total deep targets. His average depth of target, 6.9, which is a nice number.
Nice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everything here is screaming somebody who's not going to be dependent on the level of play at quarterback.
Yeah. And yards after
There's another one of those guys later.
Yards after the catch is a huge thing for Pittman as well. He was 20th in the league in yards after the catch, which again, that's wide receiver 2 caliber, which is what we're looking for, a higher ceiling than where he's currently going in underdog ADP. And with that after the catch ability, you can just expect Anthony Richardson to throw the ball to a wide receiver who consistently runs good routes and is open. He will throw to the open receiver because he's an inexperienced rookie quarterback, and that is going to be Michael Pittman. He is the most seasoned veteran in that wide receiver room by far and the most talented. Biggest body, easiest target, without question. And that's really all I have to say about that. I mean...
And at the value you're getting at, again, wide receiver 30?
An incredible value.
Wow. I mean, there's very little risk attached to taking him. So before you get that, I mean, in the comments, like I'm looking around Michael Pittman and ADP, and I'm not seeing a bunch of guys that I'm like dying to take around him.
No, I mean the guys going around Pittman are guys like Deontay Johnson, Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Jahan Dotson, Brandon Ayuk. Good gosh, give me Michael Pittman. Like, that's disgusting.
Ayuk's a good
We don't
receiver.
even know what quarterback is playing for the San Francisco 49ers. And while that usually doesn't matter for a lot of the fantasy assets there, Deebo Samuel is the dominant wide receiver there. And Simon, shut up. I don't care what you have to say about that. But I know you might disagree.
It's the next guy, you idiot. That was a perfect transition. You
Oh my
ruined it.
gosh, you just ruined it.
Oh, no. Dang it.
I was going to say, and with that, and you said, Simon, I don't care what you have to say.
I thought you were going to crap on me for
Yeah,
saying
you know
that.
what, you know
Ayuk
what I
is
have
a-
to say? I'm going to tell you anyways.
Okay, good.
All right.
Deebo Samuel.
Deebo Samuel, just a year ago, he led the league in a list of these things. I'm going to read them off. Yards per target, yards per reception, fantasy points per reception, fantasy points per target, second in yards per team pass attempt. So, well, I guess he's not leading that. And fourth in yards per route run. So he was incredibly efficient. He did that while also leading the league outside of Kadarius Toney, who does not count because Kadarius Toney played like 20 snaps that year. He led the league in juke rate. That's evaded tackles per touch. It's a PFF stat. He
Nice.
blew onto the scene that year with 21.2 points per game. And while some regression could have and should have been expected, what Deebo Samuel did last year was not it's not what you should expect from him. He said himself in an interview that last year he was horrible. He said, what I put on film was embarrassing, because he was being interviewed just last week at training camp. And he said, that was not me. I was distracted. And he said, I sat down with Kyle. That was embarrassing. What I will put out on tape next year is not that. I looked sluggish and I looked bad. Even while looking bad and sluggish, he was top 12 in target rate at 28.2% of his routes he was being targeted on.
Not bad.
He was top 24 in target share with 25% target share. Even while only having 632 yards, he was 8th in the league in yards after the catch.
Playmaker.
So he only had 600 yards, and he was still 8th in the league in yards after the catch. He led the league in juke rate again. No way. It's like Deebo Samuel's elusive or something. But all that to say, who cares? You said, who's the wide receiver? I mean, he's the quarterback in San Francisco. Who cares? Doesn't sound like Deebo Samuel needs it to me. He's efficient. He does what he does after the catch. He's the most elusive player in the league for 2 years in a row. Kadarius Toney does not count. This guy is crazy. And honestly, okay, you look at 21 points per game and 12 points per game. Which one is he going to land on? Well, probably neither, but I'm really, really willing to bet he's going to go somewhere in the middle. 16, 17, 18 points per game, and at wide receiver 17 on Underdog. Please, how you doing? Keep it moving. I want him.
The last guy on this list is a guy that makes this list every freaking year. Every year we do this to Chris Godwin. I'm going to get upset.
Uh-oh.
Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin had 6 total deep targets last year. And you might say, well, that's actually not good. I mean, it's also not bad because he had a 58% slot snap rate, AKA this is sustainable production. When you have a guy that is taking the majority of his routes out of the slot, he was also 5th in total route wins. Remember that stat from Michael Pittman. He was 13th in juke rate. Remember that stat as well. He was 14th in contested catch rate, AKA these certain metrics are going to maybe give you a hint that somebody is going to be quarterback proof. But didn't we already know this about Chris Godwin? Wasn't it Chris Godwin that was the wide receiver 2 overall in fantasy during Jameis Winston's 30-30 year? I think it was. I mean, Chris Godwin, 99th in average distance per target. It's not like whoever's going to be throwing the ball there, and yes, it's going to be awful. It's not like whoever's throwing the ball there is going to have to just drop it in the breadbasket every time. Chris Godwin is getting open himself. He was 6th in yards after catch. He does a lot of his damage after the catch. He's extremely elusive. He's a good athlete. He's very good with the ball in his hands. He had 487 yards after the catch last year. Last year, everybody wants to talk about the big QB downgrade. 32nd in the QB rating per target. 32nd in QB rating per target. So nothing special. I mean, that's not horrible, but I think acting like Tom Brady was playing at an MVP level last year is doing a disservice to everybody involved.
He threw it like a record amount of times because he was just dinking and dunking, which is what he does best. But like that's all they could do, and it was not impressive at all.
So do you really think like as crappy of a quarterback as Baker Mayfield is? Like I'm watching the videos come out of training camp in Tampa Bay, and I think I could do better than that. And I'm terrible at everything. But seriously, if you don't think Baker Mayfield can come out there and just throw these ticky-tacky throws to Chris Godwin and Rashad White, I don't know what to tell you. Chris Godwin, not old, by the way. Not old. He's going as the wide receiver 29. All that to say, I said all that. How quarterback proof he is. He's been consistent. Quarterback, I mean, he wide receiver 29. Because why?
For why?
For why?
Explain, please.
Someone explain. I think it's the Baker Mayfield effect, really.
It absolutely is. I mean, the Bucs are potentially, they're not potentially, they are in the running for Caleb Williams next year. They're in the running for the first overall pick. That's kind of what it's looking like right now. Even though they do have a good roster outside of the quarterback position, the QB position looks so freaking bad that it could literally run them into the ground. And that is why Godwin and Mike Evans are both being shorted. But I am telling you, if any wide receiver of those two is going to take a hit, it is Mike Evans because of how easy of a target Chris Godwin is in that offense and has always been. It's why he had the wide receiver 2 season. That's his upside. Every single year it is.
Look, and we can be honest about Mike Evans too. Mike Evans, obviously, he's been one of the most consistent fantasy producing wide receivers. Still a buy because he's going so low. But when you look at last year, Mike Evans really was propped up a little bit by Tom Brady because a lot of his production, a lot of what propped his production up to get that consistency came from 2 games, and a lot of those were deep throws.
Yep.
So that is a situation where you've got a guy that's making a living off of some deep balls. And again, this is another reason why we don't like Christian Watson too, but that's a whole other video.
Well, there's one thing you didn't bring up here though. I was about
to say it, but you got it because I don't know how to say it.
Do you know who Geno Smith's quarterback coach was last year? You probably don't. And his name was Dave Canales.
Yep.
And he is now the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes.
And Geno Smith, the guy who sat on the bench for 9 years, was nobody. He was just coached by this guy last year. So if there's anyone in the league, other than Shane Steichen, really, that can turn Baker Mayfield into somebody, it's the guy who just turned Geno Smith into somebody.
It's old Dave, man. I'll tell you what.
And I'm not saying I believe in Baker Mayfield. I used to.
I don't.
That's gone.
But
that ship has sailed.
The wide receivers could reap the benefits of this. I mean, look at what Lockett and DK did as a result of Geno Smith's resurgence, or really not resurgence because he was never good to begin with.
Great.
That's the point.
We're not doing it with Chris. Guys, wide receiver 29. Please.
No question.
Please take Chris Godwin and be happy about it.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Here's a little song. Those are 5 guys that are going to win you your leagues. 5 receivers that we think are going to win you your leagues and have league-winning upside. So make sure you're drafting them. And also make sure you have liked this video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We've got in-depth fantasy content coming out all season long. We're going to be your home for fantasy league-winning advice. So make sure you're subscribed. You do not want to miss any of our videos coming up shortly. We really appreciate you watching. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later.